Kevin Sweeney, SI.com, Houston and Florida in a dramatic finish last night down in San Antonio. The Gators get it done. Kevin, you were in the Houston locker room. I can't even imagine. I have nothing, like no ounce of blood other than I would like to have seen Kelvin Sampson win a championship. And I even woke up numb. What was it like right after the game?
Man, like it was honestly the most devastating scene that I've been a part of in my career. Like, again, just like you, I had no dog in the fight. But like, man, I mean, I was on the verge of tears myself, trying to keep it together. Just, you could see the hurt and the pain. And like, I think what people probably don't understand from the outside is like how tight knit that program is. To me, it's one of the last true programs in college basketball where guys have been together for multiple years and have been working towards this moment, and to come up just agonizingly short of that goal, I mean, it's going to stick with them for a long time.
I know there was a long delay after the game ended because everybody has to decompress, and there's always a little bit of that time before the coach and players go to the podium and or the locker room is open. Was it even longer than normal after the way that game ended because it was such gut-wrenching loss?
Yeah, the policy is usually 15 minutes from the time that everyone gets back to the locker room. And I don't know exactly what time that everybody got in there, but it was about 45 before we were allowed in. And obviously that, you know, as reporters trying to do our jobs, that's frustrating. But I also, you know, you have some empathy that they just needed time. And even when we got in there, it was, you could tell they just weren't ready to face the outside world. And I know Kelvin Sampson said that, you know, he really wanted his guys to be, you know, proud of their effort and happy for how they played. He's sad about the loss and didn't want Emmanuel Sharp, who had that end of game turnover, to take the blame. He tried to as best he could. His teammates wouldn't let him. But those moments, you know, behind that big red door to that Houston locker room were really, really powerful.
Yeah, and they're not there without Sharp or without Cryer, without Roberts, or without a lot of them. And Florida, you know, if they don't win, then, you know, people look at, oh, my goodness, you know, how did they have some of their stars not play as well? Let's discuss the end of the game. Houston had 4 turnovers for like 35 minutes and then had 5 in the last, what seemed like 6 or 7 possessions and 3 or 4 in a row. What do you think happened?
Yeah, look, number one, I thought Florida's defense really, really bowed up. And, you know, remember, this is a team that last year ended its season giving up 102 points to Colorado in the NCAA tournament. And this group went on and got tougher in the portal, got some guys who really wanted to compete and defend at a high level, and it worked smashingly well. But I thought those closing possessions, the big things Florida did were, I thought they did a great job of helping without giving up the open threes, which is such a challenge against Houston. And then I thought their activity with their hands, getting hands on the ball and getting strips, was incredibly important. I thought Houston maybe took too much time off the clock, took the air out of the ball a little bit, limited their options down to 1 or 2 looks. And I thought in those opportunities, Florida was just able to get the better of them.
The last shot by Sharp, it could not have been more like just chaos right there. And then the ball's on the court, and he couldn't touch it. You mentioned that Sampson wanted them to be disappointed, but also be proud of what they did. Did you get a chance to hear from Sharp at all?
I did not. No, he ducked away and wanted a private moment, which we all understood.
Sure.
My understanding was Houston was really happy with the look that Sharp had gotten, and the plan had sort of been just to force Florida to close out hard, and then Sharp could drive it to the rim and try to get a 2. But he was so open when he caught it, he thought, hey, why don't we try to take this 3? And you watch Clayton really come from nowhere.
Oh, yeah.
He flies in for that closeout, and it just spooked Sharp enough that he didn't want to take that shot. Because, again, the plan was, if Clayton had been more attached to him initially, just use that initial step to then drive to the rim. Sharp was almost too open for his own good initially, and then Clayton makes an incredible recovery play.
It seemed like Kevin Sweeney, SI.com, was in San Antonio. Florida wins the national championship against Houston. That the game was a street fight, and I think everyone expected that. Everyone knows how Houston plays, but Florida showed grit throughout as well. But it seemed like after the technical foul on Golden that things changed a little bit, the way the game was called. And hey, that happens. It's ebbs and flows and all of that. But did you sense that as well? Because 11 of the next 12 fouls were against Houston, and it just seemed like that also was the perfect way for Florida to slide back in the game.
Yeah, I mean, look, I was very frustrated with the officiating just from the standpoint of the first half, it was open season. You could do whatever you wanted. You could be super physical. And in the second half, you come out and there's like 5 fouls on Florida and then the tech in the first 3 minutes.
Yep.
Look, man, like it's completely changed the game. And so I thought, after the technical, some of the calls went back Florida's way. But I think a lot of them were all fouls. Like there was very few plays where I was like, man, I don't know if that's a foul. It was just so striking how differently the game was officiated minute to minute. In all, I think the foul count wound up being relatively similar on one side. But I mean, it was. I didn't think the referees managed the game overall at an elite level.
Yeah, I think Houston ended up with 19-11, but it was. And by the way, I don't even think Golden was good at trying to get a tech. It was after, of course, the ball was slammed to the ground. But man, Houston now, as you know, has been in 3 national championship games. 84, Georgetown was better. This game with an absolutely kick in the nuts, excuse my French, but that's exactly the way it was. And then the NC State game that almost created March Madness with the way Valvano and NC State beat Vice-Lama Gemma. You can keep knocking on the door in some other sports programs. Basketball, they've done that. Duke had to keep doing it. Finally, they break through. Do you feel like Houston is still set up to be right back here next year?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think their roster is going to be one of the best in the country, maybe even more talented next year than this year because of the freshmen they have coming in. They have 3 top 30 recruits, including 2 5-star McDonald's All-American type of guys. And that's a different type of talent that Houston's had. They've obviously built this thing really on program guys who've been with them for 3, 4, 5 years, but it'll be a big adjustment for Samson too. I mean, you would love to see him win one before he rides off into the sunset here in a couple of years. But I think they've been consistently the best program in the sport over the last 5. I mean, UConn has the 2 championships in that period, but Houston has never been outside the top 5 in the analytics since the COVID pandemic. I mean, that's sort of remarkable to think about. I think eventually, if you keep taking cracks at that pinata, it's eventually going to break for it.
Because Florida won the championship, 14 teams in the SEC get in. Thoughts that it might be one of the best single years in conference history in basketball. We know what the Big East has done, the ACC has done, the Big 12 is proud. It's been a while for the Big 10, but does this put them at the top as the best conference in basketball because they won it all, or is that the case anyway?
Yeah, I thought it was the case at least this year anyway. I think the championship certainly validates things for the conference and really the tournament performance overall with 2 in the Final Four and things like that. But look, I think these things change year to year. I do think though, this is a clear sign of the league's comprehensive commitment to basketball. And if the SEC is going to be comprehensively committed to basketball, they're probably going to win a lot of championships.
The game's about to change, though, Kevin, isn't it? I know they had the settlement hearing. Nothing really came out of that. But what do you see? How do you see this changing? And with the cap, scholarship limitation, all of that. How do you see this changing the game itself?
Yeah, look, it's a completely different world. I think money has been a factor for a long time, certainly over the last couple of years. I think it will be a prerequisite to winning championships that you have strong financial resources to pay your players. I don't think it will be a prerequisite that you have the best or top 2 or 3 in the country to win a championship. Florida was a good NIL, maybe not great NIL. Houston had good NIL, maybe not great NIL. I think it was important to be able to have enough money to retain the guys you really want to keep in your program. I think that'll still be the case. But yeah, we'll see kind of league to league how things evolve. Right now, there's an edge for Big East programs to be able to revenue share in-house a little bit more than bigger programs in the SEC and the Big 12. But these rules have changed pretty much every year, and so to predict what's going to happen in 3 to 5, I mean, I'd be playing pretty blind on that one.
I know you have a flight coming up. Kevin Sweeney with us in San Antonio. Houston, last second loss to Florida. Gators win their third national title. There's a video of Kelvin Sampson in front of his bench as the last few seconds are winding down as the possession begins, and he just sat there, and it was kind of sad because he's sitting there expecting a team that had been so experienced, that had won clutch games, to make a play. And, of course, as we know what happened, and it was almost like he was helpless. Did you see that video? And really, in the end, how does this hurt and impact Kelvin Sampson? It doesn't take away from being a Hall of Fame coach, but just that close.
Oh, I mean, it was gutting. Honestly, what was harder for me was to go into that staff locker room afterwards and see his son Kellen just with the same kind of blank stare on his face. His daughter Lauren, who's their director of operations, in the corner, sitting on the floor in tears, and then Quantis White, who was coaching his last game with Houston. He's off to go be the head coach at Louisiana, but he obviously played for Kelvin at Oklahoma. That program, everyone in it, the staff players, they desperately wanted to bring Kelvin that championship. I think they probably feel the pain of it more even than Kelvin does.
Kevin, thank you very much. Safe travels. Thanks for your time. Kevin Sweeney was at the championship in the Final Four in San Antonio, and this is 365 Sports.